frontier markets have been dubbed as the new emerging markets, and Botswana has been identified as one of Africa's gems with a real GDP growth of 3.9%. This country's economy relies mainly on manufacturing, construction, and of course, mining. Omri van Zyl from Deloitte joins us now for more. Omri, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Let's get straight into conversation here, because when it comes to Botswana, big emphasis being placed on diversifying this economy, the need to diversify this economy in order to sustain the kind of growth levels we've gotten used to out of it. Where exactly are we looking at when it comes to untapped potential?
Approximately 75% of the country's GDP consists of mining. And the President and the Cabinet has taken a decision to diversify the economy away from mining. So they've set up hubs or nodes for growth in the country. For example, there's a diamond hub, an agriculture hub, an education hub, and so on. And these hubs are supposed to basically grow out the economy and create investment opportunities for the global community in Botswana. So if we look at where we are on a trajectory, there's still some work to be done in diversifying the economy. There's a big reliance in the economy on diamonds, on diamond exports. And with the global markets being in a bit of a slump, you know, the diamond exports have gone down with 12.5%, which is quite dramatic for that kind of small economy. Where
exactly does the agricultural space fit into this entire plan? Because you mentioned that a hub has been set up for agriculture specifically, but I've been reading that we're looking at limited potential in that arena because of the limited arable land that that can actually be invested in.
That's a very interesting question. I think what's happened is agriculture contributes less than 2% of the GDP of the country, whereas it's one of the primary sources of growth in the country. So it's not exploited optimally. So what the government is doing is they are going to channel some water from the Kasane area down towards the Panamatenga area and create a big irrigation agricultural zone that will fuel a lot of the inward needs of the country as well as the export needs that the country could adhere to in order to drive the GDP growth in that sector and create jobs and so on.
So we're seeing a shift from government side, because in early 1990, I came across comments. The government actually changed its official agricultural policy to emphasize the production of only those foodstuffs which can be raised economically. So, you know, what kind of shift have we seen in that regard when it comes to government policy?
I think there's been a more of a dynamic view as to growing the economy and diversifying it. The big problem in agriculture is water. So you cannot grow crops if you don't have water. And that was the plan in Botswana, is to actually get the water down, grow the crops, get farmers in there, commercial farmers, to actually help, you know, grow the agricultural economy and to feed the needs, like sorghum, for example. There's a big need for sorghum in Botswana, and it cannot, you know, with all the sorghum we can produce, we can literally just sell into the market there. So there's an opportunity, and there's things that are happening right now that will really help with that diversification drive in agriculture.
You've highlighted that water supply is one of the problems. What about skills base and access to that kind of resource to actually get this sector up and going sustainably?
I think the government's perspective is to actually drive skills development on the back of these hubs, as well as on the back of major opportunities. So in agriculture, for example, there would be a big skills development drive on the back of a big agricultural development, because that would bring in money and additional skills to actually grow the economy. Botswana, in agriculture, they're very well advanced in livestock breeding, especially cattle. They're one of the 2 countries in Africa that export their beef to the European Union. So the country, and as a traditional cultural dimension, the country has a very strong emphasis on cattle breeding. And it's something that comes quite natural to them. So we would look at more technical breeding or more technical crops to actually diversify the agricultural space.
Is the country meeting its full export potential? Because, of course, Botswana is a landlocked country, and getting, product to ports has got to be one of the challenges that the country faces, especially where there's a strong reliance on infrastructure and port capacity.
Yes. So if you look at the country and what it has, it's got very strong mineral resources in terms of time. It also has coal, large amounts of coal that it wants to export. If we look at where it is right now, it's not meeting all its export potential, but it's in the process of putting mechanisms in place to actually meet that and to fast track that the export potential that it has.
Is government putting enough incentive on the table for investors to invest in the economy?
That's also a good question, and I think there are. There's a lot of benefits to investing in Botswana. I mean, the two countries that guys are looking at right now for investing or setting up companies would be Botswana and Mauritius. So Botswana, has very friendly exchange controls, good tax regimes. There are very good incentives for people to set up companies there. They have units in government that actually facilitate investment into that country to make it easier and to path the way for that kind of investment. So I think it's a very friendly country to actually do something, set up a company and grow a business.
It's one thing putting the incentive on the table. Are investors actually taking note and realizing that potential?
You see, investors do this on the back of certain opportunities. So if you look at the construction sector, there's been a lot of Chinese companies that has actually set up shop in Botswana and has done a lot of things there. So that's just one example. They are in the process of fast-tracking the investment attraction potential in the country. So there's big drives from government to actually go out to the world and say, this is who we are, this is what we can do for you. Please come in and invest in the country, here are the opportunities. And it's being fast-tracked, and I think the momentum is gaining.
So an economy that we need to keep an eye on. Omri, let's leave it there. Thanks so much for having joined us this morning. Omri van Zyl is with Deloitte.